Welcome to the 8th Walleye Tank. I can't believe it, we're at 8. The goal of the tank has always been to build our ecosystem, showcase the spectrum of startup companies and their progress, and to community build around entrepreneurship to make the world a better place. We have we have a progression of business ideas. They're going to go from concept to development to exit. And we've had all of that already in the 4 years to date within the ecosystem. Of course, this is not from just the event. This is just a celebration for the process. This has been historically was built around building a Minnesota ecosystem, but the Walleye Tank is actually impacting many other ecosystems. We are impacting, we have pitches from Buffalo, Florida, Kansas City, and Houston, in addition to our Minnesota-based pitches. A number of these are through extended networking that we're doing, but also through, for example, Mayo Clinic has 3 sites, and we will be continuing to contribute from Arizona and Florida for this event. For those of you that are in the audience and maybe are not quite clear, but also remind everybody, so the style is a 2-minute sort of Y Combinator style demo days pitch, 120 seconds for the teams. There are answering 5 questions. What's the problem? What's the solution? Why them? Why now? And why it's a business? And we have an esteemed set of judges that you're going to learn, the Walleyes, that will be assessing these teams. We have 3 divisions, and at the end of each one of the divisions, a set of judges will go out to deliberate while we swap. New this time, we're actually going to have each division has a different moderator, so you're actually not going to see me again until at the end. Thankfully, and so you're going to see a wonderful new set of fresh faces and exciting spaces around us. I also want to highlight that although we have over 20 pitches, we actually have 3 that are alumni and are coming back, and you'll get a chance, for those that have been here, you'll have a chance to see their substantial progress since they presented their first time here at one of the Walleye Tanks. A couple of the nuts and bolts, bathrooms are at the ends. There's bathrooms on both sides as you go up the stop. There are snacks at the back. We will have a post-event meeting at the Pasquale's Pizza. I encourage you to do networking. That's also, if you're in the audience, your opportunity to ask the 100 or more of questions that you may have that we are not going to be able to cover in the 5 minutes total for our pitches, including only 3 minutes of questions. Finally, for everybody's sake, it's exciting. We're recording. Those that know we've done this, but we're also live streaming on YouTube. If you want to say something, that's, it's going to be broadcast on the internet and it never forgets. So with that, I want to turn the mic over to Neela Mulgard, the Executive Director of DEED, who's going to tell us and introduce our exciting event.
Hello, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. And welcome on behalf of Minnesota DEED. Commissioner Grove has a bold vision for Minnesota to lead in the nation as one of the top 5 states in innovation. And it's going to take individuals and organizations here today to make that happen. We in Minnesota have a lot to be proud of, and I think the event today is a perfect example of that. There's cities coming together, there's organizations coming together. You're reducing barriers for entrepreneurs to get started and to scale their businesses. You're infusing it with dollars and with expertise. So that is just a perfect example of today. I'm the director of Launch Minnesota. It's a new statewide collaborative effort to help accelerate startups and amplify Minnesota as a leader in innovation. And how we are going to accomplish that is really by 3 things. And it would be the same 3 things of any innovation ecosystem would need: talent, capital, and culture. So I'll break those down a little bit more. First of all, capital. We want to infuse entrepreneurs with capital through our innovation grants that are live on our website, launchminnesota.org. We have grants to go right to entrepreneurs launching high-tech scalable businesses. And we also want to work with our private investors to make sure that there's more risk capital there for you. And there's still about $1 million left this year in angel tax credits. So I encourage all of you as investors and as entrepreneurs to take advantage of that before the year ends. The second and one is talent. We want to provide education through our partners to increase the knowledge of entrepreneurs of how to start and scale their business successfully. And the third is increasing our collaborative culture throughout Minnesota, so we can save our entrepreneurs time navigating the resources, which is an invaluable resource, and also knowing where they can plug in to get the help that they need. So I really look forward to working with all of you as we create this statewide platform for success and really shining a spotlight on Minnesota innovators like all of you. Thank you for your time and welcome.
Now to the meat of the event. I thank you all for being here again on behalf of Mayo Clinic and the Office of Entrepreneurship. We love putting this event on every winter. It's a real treat. My name is Stefan Medancing. I'm the early scholar here at Mayo Clinic and kind of the man behind the mask for this year's event. So if anything goes wrong, you can talk to Mark about it. We're going to start off with the first division, which are our junior anglers. These are our earliest stage companies that are going to be presented to you today. And Aurora is going to be our moderator for the event, so let's welcome Aurora.
Thank you, Maria. My name is Alaquilila, and I'm a fifth-year PhD candidate here at Mayo. And I actually was part of the junior angler division in the first year we had Walleye Tank, which was back in 2016, and somehow ended up winning the division. I'm not sure, I think it was a lapse in judgment or something. But we will start off with Game Changers. Game Changers will be presented by Vincent Anani, and this is a team from the Mayo Clinic Case Studies of Entrepreneurship class. This team won the Walleye Tank Student Pre-Qualifier event earlier this week, and so they're here today to pitch their idea. Let's give them a round of applause. And we want to make sure to have FibroMed up on deck for next, after this one. So please come down.
This. You know which way?
This is a left ventricular assist device, or LVAD, used for heart failure patients. So what's the problem? The problem is that LVAD patients have too weak a pulse to properly measure blood pressure, leading to stroke in this patient population. Now, 9% of LVAD patients develop stroke as a result of poor blood pressure management. What's the solution? Our device. We have created a device that can measure weak pulse in LVAD patients and provide better blood pressure management. This is a prototype of the device. So right now, we have invented a device, a solution that did not exist before. A device, a functional prototype of a device that is backed by data and already has a patent in place. Why is this a problem? This is a problem because there are 26,000 LVAD patients in the US alone, and 9% of those patients develop stroke as a result of poor blood pressure management. With our device, we can reduce the risk of stroke in these patients and save about $57 million in healthcare costs. Now, why us? My team is made up of the engineer who invented the device, 2 LVAD cardiologists, and a physiologist conducting research on the LVAD product at the Mayo Clinic, along with an entrepreneur working on the investment activities and marketing options. Now we would like to invite you, investors and advisors, to join our team to better the lives of the LVAD patients. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Vincent will take questions from the walleyes.
So walleyes, there's a microphone in front of you. Just make sure to click it on when you're asking questions so that the whole group can hear. Thank you.
Can you
No, I cannot. That's, nope, it's not functional.
Can you speak a little bit more to the business model? How much you're going to sell the device for, how the device is sold in conjunction with LVAD, and a little bit more on that business piece?
Okay, so are you referring to the market in terms of cost financially or the distribution channel?
Both, actually.
Okay, so we came up with that market size based on the number of LVAD patients. So there are currently 26,600 LVAD patients in the US alone. And the cost of care of stroke is $48,000 per patient due to poor blood pressure management. There are 9% of those patients who are at risk of developing stroke due to that poor blood pressure management. So when you multiply the number of LVAD patients by the 9% and the cost of $48,000 of stroke, you get that market size, which is about $115 million. Now, what we want to do in terms of business plan is we know that at least in the first year, we want to target 10% of that population, starting with throughout the Mayo enterprise and our collaborating centers. And in the additional years, we hope to reach at least 50% of that market size. Does that answer your question, though?
It answers part of the question, I guess, what the overall opportunity is. I was wondering, have you validated how much people are willing to pay for it and how you sell it, et cetera?
Okay, so market research. Yes, we did some market research. We have our LVAD cardiologist here who spoke to more than 90 patients as a market discovery. We spoke to LVAD surgeons and healthcare providers for health LVAD patients. We spoke to insurance companies. So we spoke to all of those and realized that this is a need worth addressing, because currently you cannot measure blood pressure using the existing blood pressure device. It has to be done using a more difficult approach by healthcare providers only.
Thank you.
So this is a device that would use in hospital, or is it a consumer-based device to be used in the home?
So there is opportunity for the device to be used in hospitals, inpatient and outpatient, as well as at home. And hopefully the opportunity lies where the patients can use this at home, because currently they have no way of measuring their blood pressure at home. They have to go to the hospital each time they need that done.
Can you speak to whether your market sizing is based on new patients annually, or is that the cumulative amount of patients with LVAD therapy being delivered?
Okay, at this point, the market size is based on cumulatively the number of patients that are currently in existence. But heart failure is increasing and heart transplants remains limited. So this number will significantly increase as the years go on.
Great, thank you. I think that's all the time that we have. Thank you, let's get more. All right, up next we have Team VibralMed. Arash Manad will be presenting today, and he returns to the Walleye Tank for the second time this year to pitch his medical device company. Let's welcome back Arash. We'd also like to have Dr. Kazi on deck to present next, so please come down, Dr. Kazi.
Hello everyone, I'm Arash Manad. I'm with VibralMed, which is a medical device company. Let me talk about one of our customers. She's Mary, she's 45 years old. She wakes up one day and she can't speak. Over 2 months, she loses her voice. She's a teacher. She cannot talk with her children. She cannot talk with her colleagues. And then it takes 2 years for finally she finds a physician to diagnose her. He tells her that you have a rare disease. We don't know why it happens. We don't know how it happens. But you need to have Botox injection for the rest of your life every 3 months. They have talked with more than 100 patients and which they have this disorder. Around 40% of these patients are satisfied with this Botox injection, but 60% of them, they have no solution. Either it doesn't work on them, or they don't like it, or they don't want to have the injection in the vocal cord muscles. And basically, there are around 50,000 patients that have this disorder in the United States. Our solution is to use is to vibrate the laryngeal muscles. So we developed a device that it is non-invasive, it is wearable. People can bear it. It will reduce the symptoms of the voice. People, as a result, they go to the doctor less, and it is an on-demand type of treatment. We have funding from NIH, from NSF, from MinDrive, and it's been 5 years that we are developing this technology. We have the science now. Now we are basically moving forward with developing, with making it real. Our team is from movement neuroscientists. Dr. Golding is the otolaryngologist. We have speech experts, so we have a team that coming from both engineering and clinical side. And this is the milestone that we have. So by the end of this year, we will have our MVP, and we go through the FDA approval, hopefully by 2 years, and then we go for the CPT. Thank you.
All right, any Walleyes have questions?
Elizabeth, you discussed the revenue opportunity.
So it's 50,000 patients, and the revenue is around $200 to $300 million. But it's a platform technology. So this is our beachhead market is $200 million. But we are now going toward the cervical dystonia and the stroke and cerebral palsy. That again, we can use this for rehabilitation. So basically, since we have the funding, we have started with the spasmodic dysphonia, and then we are going to branch it out to other disorders.
Can you speak to your intellectual property?
So the patent is protected for the device, and so basically we have licensed it through the University of Minnesota. And
In distribution channel, have you thought through that?
so we have a really good connection with the National Spasmodic Dysphonia Association, which is the association of this disorder. We have a really good channel through the support groups that we can reach out to the patients. We have made a really good connection through the physicians that they do the treatment for these patients. So that's the main channel that we are going to move forward. Actually, we talk with patients, and right now, more than 100 patients reach out to us that are willing to pay for it. The price for the device is around $10,000, but they're willing to pay for it because they're desperate. They don't have anything else. But the goal for us is to go through the CPT coding, and then if we get the reimbursement, then we will have more patients. Let me just point this one out, that we have a patient that is willing to pay $50,000 for deep brain stimulation, and they don't know that if it's working or not. So if we have a solution, they will buy it.
Can you talk about your FDA clinical trial that you plan and how long it is?
So we are thinking of going toward de novo, and the plan, because there is a humanitarian exemption, device exemption, that's the goal that we have for deep brain stimulation for cervical dystonia. They're using that approach. So that's a kind of like faster approach. The goal is to get it into 2 to 3 years, and then at the same time we are working for the CPT mode to move both of them at the same time. But de novo is the approach that we're going. And again, because it's a rare disease, we are kind of like in the orphan disease type of disease. So it's part of orphan. Yeah.
But have you thought about how big a trial should be? Is it going to be randomized?
We are running a clinical trial for a longer duration. It is randomized. We are having different groups, different types of vibration, different frequencies of the vibration, and to see what is the best. We have it random. Actually, we are running a clinical trial.
Great, thank you so much. Give them a round of applause. Actually, next up, we will have Neurotype. They will be represented by Scott Burwell. Dr. Burwell is a psychology postdoc at the University of Minnesota, interested in brainwaves and addiction. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Burwell.
All right. Thank you much. All right, yeah, my name is Scott Burwell, and I'm the founder of Neurotype. And today, there's 22 million people with a substance use disorder, and out of the people that seek treatment, over 60% will relapse in the first 30 days after treatment. One of the reasons that people relapse is due to their craving, so the intense desire or intent to use substances. To an everyday person This scene might look like a beautiful street, sunny day, but to a person with a substance use disorder, it's filled with traps and triggers. And those traps and triggers can induce craving, which ultimately lead to relapse. The industry standard for diagnosing craving is based on patient-provider interviews. But these things, as we know, tend to be subjective, often biased, and just generally unpredictive of relapse. There are objective tools that are being developed, but these are based on geo-trackers and chatbots that are often too little and too late, meaning that the prediction of the relapse comes at the time when the person is already beginning the relapse. So what we need is something focused at the point of care. So what we're developing is an objective tool based on brain electrical signals with consumer-grade EEG headsets to track people's cravings over the course of their treatment, so that providers can predict relapse before it occurs and before the person's out of their treatment. We're targeting clinics that are focused on gaining a competitive edge in terms of relapse prevention, and we're targeting insurance reimbursement codes that are existing for EEG assessments already. My team consists of myself and Justin Anker of the Minnesota Department of Psychiatry, Twin Cities, as well as we have consultants and collaborators in the clinical space and external support supporting our path to commercialization. We see this as having over $100 million revenue and in a growing area. So with that, I'd like to thank you and take any questions.
So once the technology identifies the craving, what's the intervention to, like, how do you make sure that they don't go off the rails?
So at the moment, we're targeting this as a point of care tool, and so we're leaving that up to the clinicians that are focused their therapies already on sort of targeting a person's identification of their own triggers and treating, sort of giving them behavioral tools that they can use sort of to overcome their urges when they encounter these triggers in real life. But we're not suggesting any one treatment versus another one. That might be a little bit further down the line.
What kind of information do you have on the impact of your therapy? How successful is it?
So in some studies using lab-based EEG assessments, there's already been prediction of relapse. The numbers are 70 to 80% in some of these, in terms of accuracy. But we're kind of at the early stage of some of this research still.
What's the intellectual property protection you have around your technology?
So the design itself is based on a long-standing area of research in clinical and addiction neuroscience, but the underlying algorithms are proprietary and I have not yet seen these published. I should mention though that the design itself is based on over 100 publications that have been done that I've counted, and so there does seem to be something there.
So of course, important would be to make sure those that need it use it. Have you thought through how to ensure patient compliance with the device?
Yeah, so that's where we're right now focusing on probably facilities where they might be for-profit, where there are people that are more invested and more motivated to go through the full treatment and to use and be compliant with the device. Does that answer? Yeah.
I can speak pretty loudly, I think. How do you, you're acquiring this data? Yes, sorry. Thank you. Are you, do you acquire this through a headset? Is that?
Correct. There are commercially available EEG headsets that are on the market. And so we'll be acquiring that. And what we're really focusing on with this technology is the software platform that interfaces the EEG headset with our technology platform.
And these folks would be wearing this headset in public? Is that the?
No. This is really kind of a 20-minute thing that they would do in the clinic, but ideally they would be doing this multiple times throughout the course of their treatment.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Next Aaron Damon representing Brain. Aaron Damon and the team from Brain recently won the Mayo Clinic Alligator Tank in Florida for their chance to pitch at the Walleye Tank. Good luck, Aaron, and we will have the next group up, Daniel Fleury, on deck.
Hi, everyone. So almost 100 years ago, Dr. William Mayo stated that there was no excuse to learn on the patient. And little has changed over the last 100 years. Surgeons do train on cadaveric tissue, but there is problems with cadaveric tissue. One of the biggest ones is cost. It's not regulated. The facilities to house this tissue is extremely expensive, and a lot of the tissue isn't suitable for surgical simulation. It's not available all over the world, and certain disciplines like pediatrics have no available cadaveric tissue. Our solution was to create a polymer to combine with 3D printing to make surgical simulators that you could use from start to finish. They're a fraction of the cost of cadaveric tissue. They don't require specialized facilities, and they take minutes to assemble. So why now? So resident surgical experience is on the decline because there is limited tissue and limited facilities for this tissue, and that's created a rise in the U.S. simulation market. It's expected to grow about $500 million in the next 5 to 7 years, and we feel like we can capture a good portion of that. We've validated this product with multiple surgeons from all over the world, and it does perform at the same level of cadaveric tissue. Our team is composed of material scientists, 3D printing specialists, and we have 3 senior neurosurgeons who have validated a lot of our prototypes and continue to establish industry contacts. In the future, we look to expand this not only to neurosurgery in the brain, but also to all the other organ systems in the body. Thank you.
Great. Any questions for Team Brain?
How do you plan on distributing this in your cost analysis for your market share?
We're actually looking to partner the IP with a manufacturing company that can produce this on the same level, or on a large scale, because we're not manufacturers.
So I know there's been other attempts previously to do this 3D modeling. What differentiates your product from some of the other products out in the market?
A lot of them use hydrogels, which is a freeze-thaw technique. It takes a long time to replicate, so they're expensive. You can't compete with cadaveric tissue prices. And other ones use silicone, which you can't use electric recovery on, and they can't ultrasound or shoot fluoride on this. And ours can do both of that, or all of that.
So I'll ask the IP question.
Yeah, we're currently in discussions with Mayo Ventures about getting it secured. So it's, I think, almost done as far as securing patent.
So as you do this and as you're thinking about the IP position, do you have a sense of what that would look like? I mean, 3D printing is something that obviously everyone's doing.
It's the proprietary polymer that we're going to patent. So,
And can you talk through your cost model and revenue model a bit?
yeah, it's literally pennies on the dollar. A lot of these are organic components that are very cheap, and basically we have the 3D printing. Obviously, is expensive, but if you use just we're using a very cheap FDM printer, and we've done all this for pennies on the dollar. So.
What do you see as the market size?
As far as simulation and education and surgical training, I think it's huge. So they've projected that it's supposed to grow close to $1 billion, and we feel like surgical simulation would be about half of that, so close to $500 million. And it would save institutions tons of money. Obviously, they won't need the facilities. You can set these trainers on a physician's coffee table if you wanted to.
Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you. From experience, I'd like to tell you these 120 seconds can be very difficult to present everything for your business and problem and the solution and all of these things. So let's give all of our teams a round of applause. They all did really well.
All right, we're actually running a little bit early today. We've had a couple teams become unable to make it out. So what I'm going to actually ask right now is for the Walleyes to just really give a 2-second introduction to themselves before they run away. We're going to have extra time for them to give their judging rulings anyway. So we'll just pass the mic down, Julie, if you don't mind starting. Just say a couple words about who you are and where you're coming from.
Sure, I'm Julie Henry. I'm Director of Operations for Mayo Clinic Ventures and Mayo's Business Development Unit, and I've been here at Mayo for 27 years.
Hi, I'm Brian Clark, Senior Manager of Corporate Research at Boston Scientific. I've been with the company for about 15 years.
Hi, I'm Dale Nugent. I'm a former venture development executive at the University of Minnesota's Venture Center, also an angel investor, and I'm faculty for the MidCorp program at the University of Minnesota as well.
Hey, Alex Combs. I am formerly a venture capitalist, currently a senior director for strategy and business development at Medtronic.
I'm Juliana Elstead. I'm CEO of Nuclear Medical, which is early stage medical device company. I've been in MedTech for over 15 years with big companies like Medtronic, yes, small companies. Really enjoy entrepreneurship.
My name is, My name is Tim Hare, and I am a director with a business consulting firm in the Twin Cities. I've been in the medical device space for about 25 years and have worked with a number of startups and have 20 plus product patents behind me as well.
Hello, I'm Tracy Dallas. I'm the Executive Director of Collider Foundation here in Rochester, focused on supporting and growing the entrepreneurial ecosystem here. I'm also a serial entrepreneur and a neuroscientist.
I'm Perry Hackett. I'm a professor of genetics at the University of Minnesota for the past 39 years, and I've co-founded three companies since 2000.
And I'm Carla DeVoe. I'm the Program Director of MinCorp, which is the University of Minnesota site for the National Science Foundation Innovation Corps program.
Wouldn't be possible without our walleyes. We really appreciate you guys spending your day with us this afternoon. We're going to have the first cohort of walleyes retreats to the judging room so that they can go on and deliberate about the presentations they've seen already. I'm going to ask Jamie Sandstone to come up and talk a little bit about some of our sponsors that make this event what it is, and we would not be able to do it without them. And so we're going to also ask Brian Klausman to come up and be on deck. We're going to have you guys up next after Jamie. Thank you.
So I didn't know I was pitching. Hello everyone, my name is James Sunsbach and I am the Executive Director, no, I'm not the Executive Director, Director of Operations at the Collider Foundation. The Collider Foundation is a nonprofit, a 501c3 here in Rochester, focused on helping to build and sustain and support our entrepreneurial ecosystem. We think that the entrepreneurs in Rochester really have the ideas and the motivation to really change the world for the better, and we want to be there to help and support them in any way we can through education, entrepreneurial events, innovative space, as well as storytelling. We want to get the word out about all the great people and things going on in Rochester. Special hello to everybody not from Rochester, from the Twin Cities and beyond. Thank you for coming, and please enjoy our community. And we are just really pleased to be a sponsor. We've been a sponsor since the beginning, and we really believe that these type of gatherings really add value, some valuable connections, and ultimately just increase our love and support of entrepreneurship in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And so as we move into our mid-level reelers division, I'm going to introduce Martin Brotman, who's coming here from Mayo Clinic, Florida, to be our moderator today for this division. Martin?
Thank you. So, I'm Martin Roman. I am at the Office of Entrepreneurship in Florida, on our Florida campus of Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. We have had one of the pictures from the alligator tank, which is very similar to the Walleye Tank, came here and pitched earlier this afternoon. And now I'm happy to introduce the very next one for the mid-level readers. Mr. Brian Klausman from Aurora Concussion Therapy Systems. Aurora Concussion Therapy Systems has pitched before in the spring Walleye Tank and has come back to show how they have improved over the last year and are here to pitch the second round. Thank you very much.
We're going to have Joe Conley on deck, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Brian Klossman with Aurora Concussion Therapy Systems. We are focused on the 1 million patients who have a concussion. Half of those go to the emergency room. Oh. Hang on. Thank you. Half of them go to the emergency room, and that's the population we're focused on because they require additional therapy and treatment. What's important to know about this population is that the recovery time can expand months and years, and it's very variable. So what we're trying to do is address the root cause of all concussions, which is the energy level that's occurring within the brain. What's allowing that to happen is the fact that we now today have new diagnostic tools that have all been approved by the FDA in the last 18 months. Without those diagnostic tools, we wouldn't know what patients we could actually treat and how to treat them. So it's an important time for us to be able to move forward with the therapy. That therapy of delivering energy to the brain, basically using near-infrared light to stimulate the mitochondria to produce ATP, is the key focus of how we're helping these patients recover. This technology of near-infrared light is not new. It's been used in mice studies before, and it's shown that it can actually recover the mice within half the amount of time. Dr. Meehan actually did a randomized controlled trial using that same dosage of energy, and he got mixed results. What we identified was that the therapy hadn't been scaled to the human anatomy. We shared these findings with Dr. Meehan, and he confirmed, and he's available to talk to any investors who want to be able to help us move this information forward. And that's the basis for our technology and our patents. We've already received FDA approval on a breakthrough designation, which allows us to move the efforts forward quickly. We have also identified that we will be a de novo product with a Class 2 designation. We're currently doing an IDE preparation for a clinical trial on 40 patients next year, and that's why we're seeking $1.5 million in funding in order to be able to deliver this product to the marketplace. The product will actually be placed in therapeutic centers. Patients who are appropriate will be activated. We will then notify the patients. Thank you for your time.
Do judges have any questions?
Questions?
Brian, what's the business model here?
So I'm glad you asked. We're in a very interesting time with the healthcare system changing. If you think back 5-10 years ago, most patients paid a $30 copay. And that's what we're finding when we're doing our customer discovery with the clinics and the patients. That's evolved. Patients now are having to pay more out of pocket with high deductibles of $6,500. As of today, this is an out-of-patient cost. Our business model is based on the fact that they're paying around $5,000 to $8,000 for recovery. If we can shorten that healing time in half, we're going to save the patients that amount of money. And the fact that we're going to be charging $1,000 is still a cost savings not only with the patients, but the clinics that are now being inundated with all these additional concussion patients, they can now get them through faster. So patients win, providers win, healthcare system wins.
So is it going to be the hospitals and the providers that are going to be your customers?
Actually, our customers are going to be multifactorial. We're actually going to be focusing on the patients primarily, and the care providers at the emergency rooms will be identifying patients. So as they refer them, because we're adjunctive to the physical therapy, we're not replacing any of the care that they get today. We're actually adding to it. So we're going to be fitting into that same stream of how the patients get referred. What's going to be important is for the patient to understand what they're paying for now that they're having to pay more for their healthcare system these days. So that's part of our audience.
So is this technology making the therapy that they're getting more effective?
Yeah, what's interesting is the therapy people get today when you have a concussion, after a short pause of rest and removal from stimulation, and this has changed in the last couple of years. It used to be you'd go sit in a room and be quiet for several days. Now what physicians are doing and care providers is they're actually trying to get patients back and engaged and active with physical therapy. So it depends on what symptom you have. Balance, visual, cognitive. And so each therapy that they do for rehabilitation is tailored to the patient. And what we're trying to do is just help the patient in general. So it doesn't really matter what the symptoms are that they're currently trying to recover from. And so it'll be applied to all patients.
So is it a headset?
Yeah, it's a helmet. Sorry if I didn't catch that in my brief. It's non-invasive, it's a helmet scaled with the right energy levels to be able to help get to the cortex.
And so it goes to all areas, so depending on what the
Yes.
symptom is, then it would be targeting those areas.
It's for the whole head. For some of you think of, you hit your head and this is the part that gets damaged. It's actually the brain, it's impacted on the front and then it comes back. So you actually have damage internally in multiple areas of the brain. And that's why the design of the device is to cover the whole head. Any other questions?
You may have said this, but you suggested that it could reduce the treatment time by half.
Correct.
What's the data supporting that?
We're using the mouse data to show that the mice, which is a validated concussion protocol model, and in there they were able to reduce it 60%. I don't know that we're going to achieve that same level, but we're using that as our thesis on what we think we can accomplish with the humans if we properly scale.
That's all the time we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next is here to revolutionize healthcare for women with menstrual pain conditions for the first time at Walleye Tank. It's Joe Connolly from Sauna Health. And after Joe will be Elizabeth Siegler from Metaphage. Please come up front.
Hello everyone, my name is Joe Connolly and I'm the founder and CEO of Sauna Health. We're tackling the problem of chronic menstrual pain due to conditions like endometriosis, which is something my mother suffered from for 2.5 decades going undiagnosed. Despite the fact that it's more common in a working age population than diabetes and depression, women really struggle with this condition. They're told that the pain is all in their head and they're called hysterical. And it costs $25 billion in healthcare expenditure every year, mainly driven by unnecessary and redundant surgeries. I've talked to women that have had 12, 15, 17 different surgeries for this condition. So this is kind of the state of affairs right now for women that have endometriosis. It takes them about 10 years to get diagnosed and they're bouncing around the healthcare system getting different treatments. Sauna helps by streamlining this care pathway by doing two different things. The first is giving the women a list of vetted physicians so they can self-refer and get the best practice care. The second thing we do is provide clinically validated self-management habits that are proven to reduce pain. This comes in the form of pelvic floor physical therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and diet changes to modulate your hormones. We're very aware that for this app to actually have a clinically meaningful impact, we need to drive behavior change. So our app is very much designed to actually drive that behavior change. And we're working with the Mayo Clinic right now to actually prove that our app will indeed reduce pain in a clinical trial. Our business model is based on the fact that our program is based on a landmark randomized controlled trial that showed that integrated care, so the components that I mentioned, has a cost savings of about $7,700 per patient. That's mainly driven by a reduction in surgical volume. We take that cost savings to our sales targets, who are self-insured employers and insurers, and they gave us a per patient payment. This is really important because we sit at the nexus of employers wanting to reduce their healthcare spend, and also with the Me Too movement, they want to benefit to show that they're a progressive company. Our team is built up of menstrual pain or chronic pain experts or menstrual pain patients, as well as 2 people from Red Brick Health who have built and scaled healthcare companies.
So your market is mostly to the insurers?
Right, Exactly, through a reduction in spend. So the other big market is self-insured employers. So those are employers that are financially liable for the medical claims of their dependents. So it's almost every large company is self-insured now.
So I want to get this straight, it's the patient that is writing the checks though for this?
Nope, so the checks are written by the self-insured employers or insurance companies. It's provided to the patients for free.
So IP, is there any IP in this?
No IP.
No IP, okay. So what's your next steps?
So we're launching right now in a few different clinicians' offices, and we're also launching with our first employers. And then from there, we're kind of refining our program and making sure that we get good NPS scores and good engagements, and once we've proven those metrics, we'll hire our sales team and actually expand from there.
And have you priced out this product so that you know what the return on your investors' investment is going to be?
So we have priced out the product, and we've worked with employers to make sure that it's an acceptable level. In terms of the ROI, it would be difficult to say, but we obviously think it can scale up to tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. If you take the price that we're going at right now, it's about a $7.5 billion market.
And how much are you asking to get off the ground now?
So we have a friends and family round right now, and then once I get through those milestones, so through the launch and getting the NPS scores, then we'll probably be raising $750,000 to $1 million in a seed round, depending on how much the Mayo Clinic charges us.
This whole idea of kind of wellness-focused apps has been a kind of trend with self-insured employers. And one of the issues has also been around compliant adherence to whatever that app is. How are you addressing that?
So I would say two things. The first thing I would say is that our patient population is really desperate, very sadly. But the other thing that we're doing is we've really broken it down and tried to make it very digestible. So we heard from a lot of patients that you can't just give me a bunch of information. So it's actually a 12-week program that they go through, and every week they get new material. We're also going to be integrating health coaches that ask what their goals are at the very beginning of the program, and then throughout the course of that 12 weeks, they hold them accountable. So they'll have a dashboard to say, why haven't you done your physical therapy this week? We're also using some modern psychological concepts, such as building up behaviors. So for example, with the pelvic floor physical therapy, you just start up doing 2 times a week for 8 minutes at a time, and it builds you up to 5 times a week, 15 minutes at a time, and it's really to drive that habit and drive that behavior change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is to revolutionize quality of immunotherapy for a fraction of the price. For the first time at Walleye Tank from Metaphage, Elizabeth Ziegler. And after that will be Lynn Smith, so I ask her to come to the docket.
I'm Liz, and this is Brandon with Metaphage. CAR-T immunotherapy has induced long-term remission in many cancer patients and equips the patient's T cells to fight cancer. However, there are several disadvantages to this therapy, mostly due to the virus used to engineer the T cells. It's very expensive. CAR-T costs around $400,000 just for one infusion of it, and virus is costly and takes a long time to make, complex protocols. It's ineffective in solid tumors as well. So Metaphage has 3 parts to our CAR-T platform: our CAR genes, our gene editing technology, and our ADA electroporator. We have several different CAR targets available. Our first product will be anti-CD19 CAR-T therapy for lymphomas that are resistant to CAR-T targeting CD19. We also have the IP to several different novel genes that target solid tumor antigens. We also have GeneWeld gene editing technology that's completely non-viral. We have the IP to this, and it's CRISPR-Cas12a based. It allows targeted CAR gene therapy, targeted knock-in of CAR gene while simultaneously knocking out detrimental genes. We use a next-generation ADA electroporator. It's multi-probe and has a uniform electric field for better transfection efficiency and cell viability. And the F1 model shown here is already at clinical scale. So CAR-T has a lot of problems. It's largely ineffective in solid tumors, and it's an inconsistent, quite variable product. It's costly and also takes a lot of time to produce. But Metaphage can do multiple gene edits in one round for a more effective CAR-T product. We have consistent and targeted gene delivery with our gene melt system, and we also have a lower cost of goods, and we can do this faster because it's non-viral. We have a clinical scale electroporator as well. This is our team. We have physicians, scientists, and engineers who are highly qualified and have relevant research experience. We're Metaphage, and we're accelerating cancer cures, and please contact us if you'd like to learn more. Thank you.
How do you replace viruses for getting your car into the cell?
So our proprietary ER-Cas12a technology uses a targeted CRISPR to a genomic locus of interest to target a particular region of the genome, while simultaneously integrating the chimeric antigen receptor cargo. We can select for precisely genomically edited cells by a clinical grade EGFR receptor, which is in the clinic today. So we can enrich for our edited cell population that are precisely engineered.
So I think I understood the jargon, but I didn't get an answer to the question, which is how you get this DNA into the cell.
We use plasmid-based transfection of a DNA encoding a CRISPR, as well as a DNA-based cargo. So basically 2 plasmids.
Tell us more about the business model.
Our business model right now is we're going to be selling these CAR T cells. Our first market right now are these refractory non-CAR-19 responding patient populations. Right now, it's estimated to be about 35,000 patients a year, and a potential for about $1 billion market for this one product alone.
So how will you distribute? What is your distribution plan?
Well, since most of us are affiliated with Mayo, also we have relevant biotech experience. I think we have a lot of good connections for that.
Are there any concerns about the precision of the genetic surgery you're doing?
Our ex vivo engineered cells will undergo quality control by whole genome sequencing to basically ensure that there's no unintended or non-detrimental off-target activity. So not terribly concerned, but we will look for and validate it before they go back into a patient.
If there are no other questions, then thank you very much, Wallace. Up next is Lynn Smith from one of the first 100 registered app developers in the Apple Store, presenting here how to find migraine relief. And after her, Patty Post will come up. So please come to the dock.
All right, hello Walleyes. I'm Lynn with Migraine Insight. And America spends about $78 billion a year on migraines. For every 1,000 employees a large employer has, that's $84,000 a year that they spend on migraine-related costs. For a big company like our Minnesota's beloved Target, that's about $29 million a year lost to migraines. And migraines are a devastating illness. The suicide rate is 9 times higher for people who don't have their migraines and symptoms under control. And patients with migraines, patients spend years sitting in appointments with doctors trying to remember information on the spot about what's happened within between appointments months ago or sometimes years ago with very little written information to go on. The standard protocol right now is to track on paper. Migraine Insight is a patient toolkit that's differentiated in the market because we help people gather information between appointments, we analyze it, and we summarize it to help people work better with their care team. We launched last year. We quickly rose to the #2 spot on the iPhone store for migraines. We now have 20,000 users. We have done no advertising. We're growing at about 1,000 users per month right now, simply word of mouth. We listen to our users, and they're already telling us that they want this for other conditions. It turns out a patient toolkit that helps improve appointments works really well for other conditions where people struggle for years to keep episodes under control. This includes fibromyalgia, gastrointestinal illnesses, diabetes. Those are the conditions we're going to next. I'm a technical engineer. I've worked for over 10 years as a user experience person, like really honing apps and getting them working really well for users. I created this app to solve my own problem I was having with migraines. My technical team has a proven track record with many successful healthcare app launches. Our business plan is selling into corporate wellness programs, and our business model takes us to $5 million in 2 years and 22 in 4 years.
So what's next? What's next? What are your plans for growth, and what do you need support to make that happen?
So we're actively looking for a partner for a clinical trial, applying for an SBIR grant in order to really prove out the effectiveness of this with patients. We do have data collected from 20,000 users. So corporate wellness strategy, we have a new version coming out, and like I said, extending on to other conditions. Yeah.
Is there any IP that you have around this, or is it more?
We've applied for a patent for our analysis. So we look at the timing between events that could affect episodes and then the episodes themselves. No one else is doing it this way yet. No one else is doing an analysis and migraines or other similar conditions where there really is a trigger response paradigm going on. So
Do you charge for the app?
we've run some early pricing experiments. So at $4.99, $9.99, people will pay for this app. It's right now running as a free app, but we're gaining about 1,000 users per month. But our model is to get the software working really, really well. And corporate wellness programs are the best way to sort of expand right now.
I just wanted to follow up on the question about the IP. What, other than what you described, what's going to keep someone from copying this?
Okay, so yeah, I think that the analysis is really important, and I've already said that, but the biggest piece there is really that looking at the timing and having the IP kind of the ground really staked out on that. The user experience of this, I mean, there's a lot of apps in the store, and nobody's really hit on this idea of having a toolkit that helps people work better with their patients. We're hearing from our users over and over again that this is what they really want. So we're starting to carve out like a word of mouth kind of call to app. We have a huge following. We have a really big community that loves the app already. So I think early growth on the idea of patients gathering their own data and having their own record of what's happening with their own illness, I mean, that's actually a huge expanding area. So, early expansion into a market where we have a app that people love as well as the IP.
And then just to follow up on that, so excellent keeping this record. When they get to the clinician, how do they give that data to that person?
Right now, we have summarized and printed reports. And then we also have a report that helps people, so the patient can also print their own summarized information and run the app in the appointment if they want as well. I mean, there's obviously expansion potential into EMRs with this. It's not our current path that we have mapped out on our roadmap, but it actually comes up recently to throw it to EMRs. So right now, it's a printed report.
Thank you all very much. I'd like to ask the walleyes from the previous round to come back down, and as they are coming back down, I'd like to invite to the stage Patty Post, who's here pitching for the first time for Checkable Medical Incorporated, and after Patty, Steve's colleague will come and present, so I'm asking Steve to come up front so we can set up the microphones. Judges can't sit. Right.
Alright. Hi everyone, my name is Patty Post and I'm founder and CEO of Checkable Medical. Sore throat is the #1 reason why we bring kids into the doctor. In fact, 50 million of us visit the doctor every year for symptoms of a sore throat. The only way that strep throat can be diagnosed is with a rapid strep test, and it's only approved for in-clinic use. I find this to be a real problem as a mother of 3. I've had to go a number of times into the clinic multiple times in 1 week to have my kids diagnosed for strep throat. And we believe the problem is the status quo has to go. It was last year when I was at the clinic that my daughter was diagnosed, the 3rd time in. And it dawned on me, why isn't this simple immunoassay available at home? So I could have avoided these various trips to the doctor altogether. And that's when I relentlessly pursued creating a diagnostic and a digital platform to check for strep at home. What we have is a lateral flow test to diagnose strep throat, paired with a digital platform that makes for an exceptional user experience. We filed a patent, we incorporated the business, and our technology, the lateral flow, is what a pregnancy test is, the most widely adopted diagnostic available right now. Our user experience will train the parent on how to take an accurate pharyngeal sample. It will also engage the child to make them comfortable. And then if the test is positive, we'll bring them through to a telemedicine provider so they can receive a treatment plan without ever having to bring their child into the physician. We have an opportunity that's amazing with a sizable total addressable market of $4 billion. In the first year alone, if we capture 1% of households, it's a $40 million target market opportunity. We're pricing between $20 and $30, and our goal is to go direct to consumer through a over-the-counter clearance. Thank you very much.
How long does it take to get a reading?
10 minutes from start to finish.
What is the cost to make a read of the unit?
Yeah, once we go above 500,000, it will be between $2 and $3 to manufacture the diagnostic.
So would it be mail order that people would order it, or how would they get it?
Yes, our distribution strategy is national retailers, and then direct to consumer via our e-commerce site, or else e-commerce sites like Amazon.
Are there any legal issues that you have to worry about with a product like this? That if there's an error, then your company's out of business?
Sure. So with proper labeling and with a clinical trial, and with the connectivity of a digital platform, we'll have a number of ways to reduce that risk. Staying in touch with the consumer is most prevalent for that, to say, if your symptoms persist, we can get in touch with them in 12-hour increments to say, is your child feeling worse? And if they are, test them again or go into the clinic.
And then a follow-up, since there is a clinical trial, in order to give you credibility, how much are you budgeting for that you're going to have to raise?
Yeah, so the clinical trial is actually 543 patients statistically. We have gone to the FDA with our first visit to the FDA was just in November. And our trial is going to be quite attainable, $300 per patient. So in our next round, we're raising a seed round right now of $1 million, but our next round is $2 million. And so with 543 patients, we'll be under 100,000 for our, under $1 million for our clinical trial.
Could you tell us more about your team?
Sure. I didn't get to my last team. So I have a scientific, we have technology, security, UHG. We have our advisory board comes from national retailers. And then we're partnering with the best manufacturers out there of lateral flow devices that have already done this technology. We are working on a patent strategy as we're building the product right now. As I said, we did file 1 patent, but we are building a robust patent strategy around the sample collection method as well as the test itself.
Who are your competitors, and how do you beat them out?
Yeah, so our competitors is the status quo. That's what consumers are used to going to the doctor right now when you have a sore throat. So it's changing that consumer behavior, but convenience right now is where healthcare is moving. So we see that this will be adopted widely because convenience does matter to consumers.
Great, thank you all very much. Next, back for the the second time to pitch for Thaddius Medical is Steve Scully. And after Steve will be Zachary Junkus, that we ask to come to the front to have a look.
Thank you. I'm Steve Scully, CEO and founder of Thaddius Medical, and we're making connected hardware for the tracking and control of temperature-sensitive items in the medical supply chain. So medical errors attribute to the third leading cause of death in the United States. Two of the most important aspects, in my opinion, for that are the specimen that is acquired and the therapeutic that is delivered. Two of those two items are at the heart of the medical care plan, and in many occasions they require temperature control and tracking. In addition, the cold supply chain as a whole bleeds $35 billion every year because of ineffective packaging. And so what we're doing is we're creating a refrigeration system in a suitcase that is essentially connected to the internet. It's a very simple concept. However, we have 10 patents that are protecting components of the cooler, as well as the cooler itself and other products in the pipeline. The solution controls temperature for refrigeration or frozen zones and provides real-time tracking, as well as updates to the medical record for important specimens that may become questionable, whether it's a spurious result, a false positive, or a false negative. In addition, our customers are interested in using it for the delivery of controlled substances. If they're a pharmacy, a compounding pharmacy that's delivering to different locations and doing home visits, as well as hospital systems that are interested in eliminating spurious results for their critical specimens. So the team is made up of myself, over a decade of lab experience. Russell Sanders is our chief engineer, and he comes from Thermo King with a great track record, and an awesome board of advisors as well. Thank you.
So what do the customers that you've already contacted have to say about this product?
So we've already sold a few units, and we're in beta at the beginning of next year in January. And the feedback already is we can't make the product enough of it to satisfy the demand. And so they're very excited about the ability to see things in real time, where things are, what the temperature history's been, the chain of custody, so who's opened it, where they were, what they were doing when they opened it.
So for your business model, over the next year, how many of these chests do you want to make, at what cost, and what sales?
Yep, so we're doing a direct sale, as well as getting recurring revenue on the data. Our goal is to hit 1,000 units in sales by the end of the year, next year, 2020. And so the price point is sort of in flux. Until we can hit 1,000 units, our costs come way down. They drop significantly. So trying to ensure the demand first.
What is the length of time that a package can deliver?
So for right now, we're just targeting day trips. The system itself can withstand between 60 to 72 hours, depending on the environmental conditions. And maintain temperature, yeah.
Just to follow up on the IP, you talked about protection on the various components. How will that keep you from having someone create kind of the same idea, but not with those components?
Yeah, so I mean, people are going to copy us no matter what. We're going to be the first in the market and have some very excellent concepts and product available. So it'll be a legal battle, I suppose.
And I think I missed what is the cost to?
So it's in flux right now, but it's a significant investment for hospital systems, for pharmacies, but the return on investment comes back after about 50 uses, 50 days.
Thank you.
thank you very much. Last year they pitched us at Walleye Tank as Fluffy Pharmaceuticals, and this year they're back as Lea Labs. It's Zachary Youngest from Lea Labs. Up next to be Kettle Cedar products. All right, then.
Hi, I'm Zach, CEO and co-founder of Lea Labs, where we are curing cancer in dogs. Every year, pet owners in the United States spend more than $500 million on chemotherapy for B-cell lymphoma in their dogs. But chemotherapy in dogs is not like chemotherapy in humans. It just doesn't work. It never provides curative outcomes, only providing 9 to 12 months of life, and it never cures them. But we know what will. The hottest area of cancer research today, CAR T-cell therapy. CAR T is already providing curative outcomes in humans that were incurable with chemo lymphoma in the clinic, and companies like Novartis and Kite have FDA-approved CAR T-cell products in the market today. Also, in just the past 2 years, there are more than $20 billion in CAR T exits. Everyone knows it's going to transform the way that we treat cancer, but everyone is focused on doing this in humans. Lea Labs will be the first company to bring CAR T to dogs, and we are targeting the exact cancer type that is curable in humans, our first indication, B-cell lymphoma. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. CAR T-cells are incredibly expensive, and we want to be able to provide this at a cost that's affordable to the veterinary market that costs $5,000 for the $250,000 that are diagnosed with B-cell lymphoma in a year, giving $1 billion market. But how are we going to hit that $5,000 price point? First off is regulation. For human products, they're regulated by the FDA, which means 5 to 10 years and $500 million in regulatory burden just to get that first product into the clinic. Whereas Lea Labs products will be regulated by the USDA, which is a 3-year path to market and $5 million in regulatory burden. Combine that with our patent-pending gene engineering technology, we can produce it at an affordable and efficient rate. We've launched our lab in just February of this year. Within our first month, we had our first active CAR T cells and had our patent-pending gene technology up and running. And right now, we're working on developing novel CAR receptors in order to treat our first dog within the next year. With this traction, we expect to be available and on the market by 2022. Our team is incredibly qualified for this project. We are Y Combinator alums, we are gene engineering patent authors, we are world leaders in veterinary pharmacology, and Dr. Kandarian was an inventor on the CAR T-cell patent currently licensed to Novartis. We are Lea Labs, so we're addressing a $1 billion addressable market for canine B-cell lymphoma in the United States alone. We're under USDA jurisdiction, we're using precision gene engineering. We're Lea Labs curing cancer in dogs.
So the $5,000, is that just for the cells, or is that for the real total cost of treatment that might?
$5,000 is the price we're targeting, that you go into a veterinary clinic and your dog has lymphoma and you pay $5,000 for this treatment after the veterinary markup. So we're going to sell it to vets for $2,500.
Wow.
How certain are you that it works in dogs?
So there are 2 academic pilot studies, one at Texas A&M and one at Penn State, that have showed you can get some remission, not durable remission, using a transient CAR approach. Our approach is a stable CAR integration using a plasmid-based gene delivery technology that replicates that transient remission that they see in dogs with a transient approach, replicates transient approaches in mice and in human in-cell culture studies. So we're fairly confident.
I'm not sure exactly how to ask this. So the cost to a consumer for this, for their dog is how much?
$5,000 to the person walking into the clinic with the dog. Yeah.
What's the average value of a pet to an owner?
That's a variable question. We looked at some of the surveys that have been done and done some customer interviews ourselves, and the data is like for your family dog, especially those larger dog breeds, people are willing to drop $5,000 on a new knee, $5,000 on surgery to repair a ligament, and current lymphoma treatment in dogs costs up to $10,000 per dog, and 50,000 people pay that a year for that 9 to 12 month life extension. And so we think if we can do it more effectively for cheaper, it should be no problem.
I'm still trying to process the overall costs. And
right.
Where I'm coming from is often when CAR T-cell therapy is effective, the patient winds up.
You're not.
Not to get into the weeds, but when a human patient is treated for CAR T-cell therapy, they often have to then be treated for cytokine release syndrome, which is stay in an ICU. I'm wondering how the dog vet is going to handle that.
Right, so we will be pursuing the same kind of strategies that they do in humans, which is immunosuppressing the dog, prophylactically prescribing some of these antihistaminic reactions. And we, once we get into our clinical trials, we'll be able to see how severe the cytokine release syndrome is. But we're hoping to be able to pursue the same strategies that they pursue in humans to treat cytokine release now, and with the IL-6 inhibition. And all of that can be done with the GLP grade reagents for the dogs as opposed to the GMP reagents that they have to use in the clinic for humans.
So how much money are you trying to raise and you to use it for what purpose?
So right now we're targeting a raise of up to $1 million on a crowdfunding site called WeFunder. I encourage everybody to check it out. It's wefunder.com/Leah, and that's what our goals right now.
Thank you very much. We've reached the end of the mid-readers session, so thank you very much to all the pitchers and to the walleyes here up front. And I give them a warm round of applause for our pitchers. I'm going to ask our walleyes who have just judged to follow and go upstairs to the next room, and I'm going to give the floor back to Peter.
Thank you, Mark. So we're actually running quite a bit ahead of schedule with a few cancellations. So what I'm going to actually have us do is take a little break right now, which I did not schedule, so lucky us. We have some refreshments at the back of the room, and when we come back, we're going to get started again in about 15 minutes. That's going to be at 3:30. We're going to get started again at 3:30. So if you could, when you come back in, please try to squeeze into the seats. We have a bunch of people collecting near the door at the back because all the seats on the edges are taken. So if you could try to squish in a little bit, that would be ideal. Appreciate it. Thank you all for your attention. The professional groups are coming out after the break. Started in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes, please. How's it going? Good.
Got it. Upstairs. All right, so I'll go up. And so we have, I'm just reminding myself, so we have one favorite, and then the dual first and second. First.
Professional second.
So we have first and second. So they get all three?
First place mid, second place.
We have 4. 5. Okay. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. So I don't have to do second place.
Chris knows that.
Well, we're giving lots of play.
Seems like, except for second.
Well, they still get a check. Okay.
Let's go, Mike. Take their seats, please. We're going to get started again. Again, if you could try to move towards the middle a little bit and keep those edges a bit clear for people coming in a little bit later. We are still having people congregate up at the back door. All right, so I'd be remiss if we didn't ask the last of our, or this, one of our other sponsors today, without which this event would not be possible. We'd like to thank Medical Alley Association. The Medical Alley Association was founded in 1984 and supports the advancement and global leadership of Medical Alley's healthcare industry and its connectivity around the world. Their goal is to champion and facilitate an environment that enables healthcare technology and care organizations to innovate, succeed, and influence the evolution of healthcare. Medical Alley has been a catalyst for the growth of the Walleye Tank, and we're very thankful for their support. I'm going to pass the mic over to Rick Hubrick from the University of Minnesota's Technology Commercialization, who are our partners in running this event.
Thank you, and glad to be a part of this event. The University of Minnesota has several modes of participation. We have a number of University of Minnesota-based startups here. We've got people on the Walleye judging panel, and we had several people that helped with the event, help put the event together today, and so we're definitely happy to be a sponsor. The Technology Commercialization Office at the University of Minnesota works as part of the research department and works with our faculty and our researchers who produce the actual research, and our role at the university is to analyze, protect, and then get that technology transferred out into the public, into private industry, so that these technologies, this great research that's done at the University of Minnesota, and likewise at Mayo, can make a difference in the world. Just in general terms, we process about 400 new inventions a year. We do lots and lots of patents and copyrights and trademarks, and then that in turn generates several licenses, and we do approximately 15 to 20 startups per year. And so again, we have a few here today, but mostly what we like to be able to do is be part of that ecosystem. At the beginning, you heard from Neil from Launch Minnesota. We participate in Launch Minnesota. I'm on the Launch Minnesota Advisory Board, and we believe just events like this and other opportunities to connect startups and build a better ecosystem is kind of the message of a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think we're really happy to be part of that ecosystem and to be partnering with all the other sponsors on this event today. So thank you, and we look forward to the third part of this segment.
So if you stuck with me for a little bit longer, I'm actually going to be moderating the last of our divisions today. These are our professional group. This group of innovators and entrepreneurs are much farther along in their companies. Many of them are post-revenue at this point. And our first presenter is Greg Sommer from Sandstone Diagnostics. Dr. Sommer is a Silicon Valley to Medical Alley transplant and a Midwest native. Needless to say, we're glad to have him back. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Walleyes. I'm Greg Sommer. I'm the founder of Sandstone, and this is Torque. This is the world's most portable centrifuge device. It runs on 2 AA batteries, yet it can generate G-forces that exceed that of a standard laboratory centrifuge. I'm excited to show you how we're enabling lab testing anywhere, anytime. The problem is that blood samples start degrading immediately. Now, this isn't generally a problem when you're in a hospital setting, like the Mayo Clinic, where the patient has their blood drawn, that tube goes to the lab where it can be promptly processed, spun down in a centrifuge, have the plasma pulled off and going on for analysis. But this is not always possible in a remote or point-of-care setting where access to standard laboratory equipment is not possible. Enter the Torque system. Our innovation here is the novel disposable discs. The future of the blood tube is not a tube at all. It's a disc. As you'll see here in this demo video, we load the sample directly from a patient using standard phlebotomy tools that then gets immediately put in our centrifuge and spun down so that we can isolate the liquid plasma from the cells at the point of draw. You'll see this separation happen in real time where the cells get trapped at the outer perimeter of the disc, and that liquid plasma is retained in the middle where it's purified, stabilized, and ready to be processed either on the spot or sent into a lab for testing. You're not going to find a better team. I've been working on this technology since 2010, and we compiled an IP portfolio over a dozen patents and another 15 or so that are pending as we bring this product to market. We already have one product on the market. It's an FDA-cleared device in the consumer fertility space. Our business model on this product is that we are preparing for our clinical trials, which are starting next week. We'll get our 510(k) clearance middle of next year, and we're going to be selling this as a very straightforward razor blade model with the disc selling anywhere between $5 to $20, depending on the application and the assay that they're used for. We already have customers in the CRO space using this for clinical trial monitoring, but I listed here just a subset of the vast segments that we're going after, making a real impact by enabling lab testing anywhere and anytime with the Torque Zero Delay Centrifuge system. Thank you.
So you have current revenues?
We do, yes.
And how, what's the total market potential?
It's about a $24 billion market split up between the top 3 segments that we see. Clinical trial monitoring, there's about 88 million clinical tests done in the clinical trial space every single year. Cell-free DNA testing for liquid biopsy, and the at-home consumer testing market is about a $24 billion opportunity.
And which markets are you in now, and what markets are you entering next?
We have CROs that are using the product for mobile phlebotomy. They're taking the product and going to the patient's home to draw their samples. They had a challenge with running cardiac marker trials with stability of the cardiac markers, having to rush those samples into a lab or send them into a centralized lab. So they're using our device to spit them down immediately and stabilize those plasma for the mobile phlebotomist. And that's going to be our initial market segment for this product.
What's the training for the mobile phlebotomist, and do they have to have specialized training to use this?
Our current customers do a 3-minute training video, and they get it immediately, and they love it. They really think it's a great tool. It's compatible with the standard butterfly needle that they're already used to using, and they simply have to pop it in, close the lid, it does the rest.
Any failure modes of your diagnosis that you know?
Well, we're not doing a diagnosis. We're doing a collection and prep, so we're not an IVD. Failure modes are very minimal. There's a potential for an inaccurate separation if there's a manufacturing flaw, but that's all part of our quality system, and our company is ISO 13485 certified from a manufacturing standpoint.
Just trying to understand the COGS more. So how often are tests being re-administered at mobile phlebotomy sites? Then what does that cost associated with that?
Our current customer came to us because they had about a 30% rejection rate with their samples getting in the lab being too hemolyzed. Hemolysis is the biggest problem. That's the breakdown of cells in transport, occurring the sample, and it leads to contamination. They had a 30% rejection rate. Since using our product for about the last 6 months, it's gone down to 0%. The rejection rate obviously varies by application and scenario and the assays that are being run. For standard hospital lab settings, it's pretty small. It's about a 1% rejection rate due to hemolysis. But the limited access now is they can't really do it outside of the laboratory or draw center settings. So this enables a lot broader opportunities.
Can you tell us about your exit strategy? Do you plan to build it as a company? Do you plan to partner with someone?
Yeah, we think it's a natural acquisition for a tools company. Products in the phlebotomy, the lab testing space. It's a natural add-on to companies who are already selling phlebotomy tools and blood tubes. So that would be our most likely exit in this space.
Does this have to be shipped to a specialized lab to run and test it? And if so, what's the stability of your device?
We've demonstrated plasma stability for out to 7 days, which, so collect it 7 days later, it's good to go. It can be run by any lab. Whoever's doing the test needs the samples to come in, so any lab could use this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So next up we have Helium. We have Sarah Hill from Helium. Expanding the Walleye Tank ecosystem means looking for new and exciting partners outside of Minnesota as well. So we're very excited to have their team here with us today. Next up is Nested Knowledge, so please be on deck.
Stress is the 21st century epidemic, a $300 billion people in profit killer. Anxiety, pain, 165 people die every day from opioids. And we've developed a solution that in 4 minutes can reduce anxiety by 1/3 very quickly and make you feel like this. This woman is using virtual reality and our technology. She's powering that experience with her brain and her feelings, her thoughts and emotions. Helium not only uses virtual reality, but augmented reality that's powered by your own electricity inside your body, your brain waves, your heart rate, in order to empower patients to heal themselves. You plug in a consumer wearable, an EEG meditation headband, or your Apple Watch. You're able to empower these experiences with your thoughts and emotions. So you lower your heart rate, butterflies hatch out of an augmented reality chrysalis. You increase your feelings of positivity via EEG, and you can grow flowers out of the ground. Helium is an evidence-based intervention. In 3 peer-reviewed journals, helium's been shown to reduce the fast activity, that high beta activity in the brain, quickly in as little as 4 minutes. In addition, helium's team has a combined 80 years experience in media, in storytelling, in game design, in psychology, neurofeedback, successful exits. This team built the world's first VR/AR product powered by a brain-computer interface. They work for companies like Google, like NASA, and Apple, harnessing the power of the brain and the heart for anxiety in ways that have never been done before. We sell these kits as a single user and enterprise license. We have revenue, we have a patent. We have 7 million times our experiences have been viewed. Google, Facebook, Apple recently featured us, Google and Facebook, just 2 of our customers, and happy to announce a partnership, a pilot here at Mayo Clinic with the Department of Surgery using helium before operations. We've been featured on Discovery, Today Show, CBS Evening News, and the Washington Post. And we would like to tell you that we are Helium, and we are empowering patients to heal themselves.
Thanks, Sarah. So thanks for coming.
Who pays and what's your business model as far as recurring revenue?
Absolutely. So we sell into areas of acute situational or confined stress. Anything that sucks with a needle that you have to go through, we can put you inside some of these goggles and allow you to see those feelings yourselves. So our TAM is $17 billion. There are 50 million people who go through surgeries every single year here in the United States that are looking, that need some of these anti-analytics.
Who pays though?
Areas of acute situational confined stress. So hospitals.
The hospitals pay. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Can you talk about your IP a little bit?
Absolutely. So we have 1 fully issued utility patent and 2 additional ones that are pending. It allows you to modify a piece of content with a brainwave pattern, color, texture, voice. Helium is the transition that will power some of these 80 million consumer wearables in the market. Not only EEG headbands, but also your Apple Watch. This is a new way to think about content. These are VR-ceuticals, AR-ceuticals that have a therapeutic impact on the user in a completely drugless way. Our patent is also in the patent protection highway in Europe, as well as China as well.
What's the?
So you show the 2 brain slides next to one another.
Yeah.
Those before and after, what was the time frame, and does that effect last over an extended period of time?
Yeah, so Jeff, Dr. Jeff Tarrant is our Chief Science Officer, and he can talk about that.
I'll just yell. You can probably hear me okay. So the short answer is that the studies that we did were immediately pre and post about a 5-minute experience. We don't have any long-term studies at the moment. We have some subjective information, some case studies to show that if people use it consistently over time, that the effects do last, but we don't have any published studies with that yet. That's next in the pipeline.
So 3 peer-reviewed journals, Frontiers in Psychology, Journal of Neuroregulation, the Scholarly Journal of Behavioral Science and Psychology, show that helium reduced that anxiety quickly and also increased a specific brain pattern called gamma asymmetry, which is associated with feelings of positivity, love, joy, appreciation. So we're harnessing that power, that inner power, that positivity, allowing you to see it like a feeling mirror in the environment. So it's essentially allowing you to discover those own healing properties that have lied in yourself all along.
So it's a hot area. Others, you have competitors in the space, right? What sets you apart from the others doing VR gaming and other disorders like that?
Right, VR and AR companies, lots of people creating AR content, VR content, not like us.
That's great, guys. Thank you.
Unique inputs, powering it with their brain and heart. That's what makes us different. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic.
We're going to move on to the next Keith Kalman's with Nested Knowledge. Nested Knowledge is the story of two brothers frustrated with a problem that many of you may be familiar with. Keith's here to talk to us about his solution, and we have 7 rounds on deck. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Keith Kalmas, I'm the president of Nested Knowledge. So when clinicians make life-altering decisions, they rely on society guidelines, which rely on medical literature. When the FDA or CE mark bodies want to know which devices and therapies to allow into the market, they rely on reports, which rely on medical literature. When insurance companies want to know what therapies to reimburse for, they rely on health technology assessments, which rely on the medical literature. When device companies and investors want to know what therapies to develop, they rely on market reports and the medical literature. Unfortunately, all this literature is communicated in the PDF, which is an extremely outdated mode of communication. It's non-interactive, it's non-updatable. This is what results, as I'm sure most of the PhDs in this room know. You end up mining data by hand. So there have been a lot of calls for this. The government, industry, and academia have all called for interactive and dynamic content, and that's what we do. We are a system of record for science, similar to what you'd have in finance in Bloomberg or Crunchbase. We're an enterprise research service, and finally, we're becoming a better journal. So our current partners, we have medical device companies as our clients, and we're relying on the institutional knowledge and heft of evidence-based practice centers. So there are 4 key steps in literature reviews and systematic review. First, our search automates inclusion and exclusion. Second, we use machine learning to automatically extract data from published literature. Third, we generate compelling data visualizations. And finally, all our data is automatically updated. So these are just some examples: clinical outcomes comparison, patient background correlation, and underlying patient population breakouts. My brother and I are serial entrepreneurs. This is our 3rd company. We started our first 4 years ago. I pitched a Walleye Tank earlier. Our second company, we got over $2.5 million in non-dilutive SBIR funding. We founded it with our 2 friends from college who are both developers. Thanks. And I'd love to take any questions.
Can you tell me what your business plan is and how you charge out for this service? Is it based upon a per report, or is it a subscription service, or how does it work?
Yeah, so currently, like I said, our only actual customers right now are device companies. It's about regulatory literature. So if I'm sure a lot of people in this room are aware, CE mark is coming online in May of next year. So there's a lot of demand for amalgamated and analyzed clinical outcomes literature. We have interested parties on the health technology assessment. And again, that's going to be like a custom, they send us a scope, we look at the volume of literature, give them a custom quote. Down the line, we're definitely open to a subscription model. We just don't have the massive data. An advisor of us basically said, no one's going to pay a subscription for a journal that's a page long. So we got to get more data in before we do that.
What's your end game? Do you have an exit strategy?
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely going to go for an acquisition. There's no one directly competing with us, but there are a lot of strategics that are trying to get into, Google, like Google Scholar is a great example. They don't have amalgamated clinical outcomes data at the literature level. They're focusing on the patient level. So, an Elsevier, Wolters Kluwer, there are tons of giants, strategics that are very acquisitive. UpToDate was acquired for $80 million. Definitely looking for acquisition.
You're basically using public data, right? So what barriers are there? Do you have IP or?
Yeah, we have a patent pending, and also I think a lot of our defensibility comes from the fact that we've been building this for a year, and we had existing systems that we've been able to ape from our previous research company. So it's true that there's no. It's great for us that there's no limit to the access and the data we can get to. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean competitors can come in and get it. But if everyone starts doing data like this, I'll just be happy because it'll mean that we can collaborate. If everyone gets away from the PDF paradigm, we'll plug into their APIs. they'll plug into ours, and I just see them as potential collaborators.
So in the medical literature community, there's a lot of sort of good information, and information is not as great, right? Single center studies, things like that.
Right.
And I think some of the beauty of the data mining has to do with your ability to assess whether or not the designs were put together well or not. How do you give that context to someone who's looking at this type of?
Exactly. That's a great point. So you can see on this slide, you can actually filter based on your preference. So we want to empower the user to be able to custom generate reports for themselves. So if you think that retrospective cohort studies are useless, filter them out. If you only want to see RCTs, just have RCTs. And then on the data collection side, like you mentioned, a lot of it has to do with relying on partnerships with existing institutions, which is why we're going after the sort of evidence-based practice centers. We're going to take their manual systems and automate them, and then improve them. So it's a great point. Empower the user to make their own decisions, and then automate existing quality systems and place in the software.
Thank you, Keith. We're going to continue. Next up, we have Craig Carlson from 7 Realms Solutions. Craig is a veteran in business consulting and customer engagement in Minnesota. This is his first time to the Walleye Tank, so let's give him a round of applause.
Okay. Well, thank you. My name is Craig Kelcher, and with Dr. James Frickton, we founded 7 Realms Solutions. We're a self-funded company that is at a revenue stage right now. We're focused on digital patient engagement around chronic pain and addiction, and that product is called Pact. Pain and addiction is really a huge elephant in the room, and it's really a PR crisis in that there's no real practical response to helping patients. There's 50 to 100 million people that are experiencing a pain condition. There's over $600 billion in annualized healthcare costs spent in this space. The challenge is that patients control much of the outcome through the risk factors and protective factors that they can control to either dial up or dial down pain. The problem is providers don't have the time in a clinical setting or the tools or the training to actually address that. And that's what Pact is. It's a digital platform that's built around collaboration of engaging the patient outside of those 15 to 20 minute office visits. The provider prescribes Pact, and a health coach engages along with the digital platform to work with the patient so they actually understand and learn what they're doing that's causing their pain to be dialed up and what they can do to dial it down. So we help the patient take control. We're right now implemented within 2 clinics, and we're focused on doing 2 things. One, we want to prove the outcome for the patients are actually getting better. The second thing we want to do is prove that the providers can make money doing this. And at the same time, we want to make money as well. So in the end, what we're focused on is making sure that everyone wins. The patients get better because they actually learn how to control pain and dial it down. Providers actually have a tool that they can use to work with their patients and make money. We're targeting around $1,000 additional profit per patient. And we make money by providing the solution on a subscription basis per patient per month.
All right, that's great. We're going to take some questions. Thank you.
Just trying to get some help on understanding what the patient would be dialing up or dialing down. These are meds, or what are you?
No, it's really getting into social behaviors, psychosocial activities, cognitive behavioral changes that they can make. And it actually falls along all of these different areas. What are they doing from a body perspective? Are they exercising, not exercising? Or what are they doing from a lifestyle perspective around diet and some of those types of things? When we move into tier 3, we really start to get into some of the things that drive long-term control, which is really having a purpose in life, having meaning around what they're doing. So it really addresses all of these levels. So when you think in terms of the assessments and the micro-training and the work that the health coach does with the patient, they cover this whole curriculum. It takes about 6 months.
How does the curriculum interact with their day-to-day life? I mean, what does it look like when someone's actually going through this?
So when they log in, they do an assessment that helps them understand where do where are their problems, where are their protective factors, and then these micro lessons are actually delivered up to them through the platform. And those micro lessons are anywhere from like 2 to 3 minute lessons all the way up to about 5 to 6 minutes. The micro lessons are actually all built around animation as well. So we want to kind of take it so that it's, some people are turned off by when they see other people. So we wanted to take that out of their use animation so it's easier to consume.
So is there a real care provider on the other side then that's
Yes.
interacting with the patient?
So when I mentioned that collaborative platform, the provider that prescribed it actually has a dashboard. We can see the lessons that they're going through and how they're progressing through their assessments. Same dashboard that's used by the health coach. At the same time, the patient can actually create their own support network so that as they're going through the program, family and friends could actually get an email monthly, or excuse me, weekly, that would show what that patient's doing so they can actually support them as well. So it really, to really kind of get people to take control and be able to manage pain in this manner and turn that down, we really need a full ecosystem around them.
So who is it that would ultimately be prescribing this, or who's
the patient's provider
the
would prescribe it. So primary care or pain clinic. Some of the areas we're looking at is specialty care like orthopedics and physical therapy is another spot that would essentially, if wherever people are experiencing pain, it fits. Those providers, then the system actually generates the billing codes and the medical record notes so that they can actually do the claims billing. So they get reimbursement from the insurance companies. We bill them for the use of the platform.
Okay, thank you.
So what would the regulatory pathway for something like this be if it's going to be prescribed from the physician?
Think of it in terms of not like prescribing a medication. Think of it, it's almost like saying you need to go down the hall and meet with the physical therapist. That's what we mean by prescribing.
All right, thank you, Craig. We're going to continue. Next up, we have Rihanna Vandergast. The team at Men's Life Sciences are no strangers to the Walleye Tank and the Minnesota entrepreneurial ecosystem, coming all the way from the Rochester Business Park. Let's welcome Dr. Vandergast.
Yeah, so Amonis is a Rochester biotechnology company with the goal of accelerating the development of novel cell, gene, and virus therapies. And within this larger goal, we focus on a common problem. Despite the promise of all of these next generation therapies, the inability to track them inside research animals and patients slows down testing and further development of the therapies. Essentially, it's like putting them in a black box. The Amonis solution is next generation pharmacokinetic reagents and services that allow tracking of these therapies almost like they were GPS tagged. We offer off-the-shelf products such as trackable cell lines, viruses, and vectors that can be used by research labs, as well as services that allow researchers to customize this technology for their specific needs. Our company was founded in 2012 based on proprietary imaging technology developed at Mayo Clinic. Approximately $1 million in financing allowed us to open our laboratory space. And in 2015, we started selling products. And since then, we've seen consistent growth in annual sales over the years. In 2016, we started offering correlative testing for clinical trial samples, which has generated over $750,000 in revenue. This year, we moved to a larger lab space and also saw company growth. For example, our revenue for custom products went up nearly 300%. Total income for the company also increased. We're predicting at least 25% of an increase over 2 years. And we increased our average FTE nearly 50% since last year. The future's looking bright. Continued arrangements allow for more FTE as well as continually expanding our lab space. And so we're looking to hire new people. Thank you.
I'll take some questions now. Thank you.
Could you bring up your last slide again, please?
I'm trying to square the numbers here a little bit. So $750,000 in revenue in 2016, that's looking like what in 2018 or 2019?
So that, the 750,000 is revenue is since we started doing that in 2016.
Okay.
So these are meant to be some examples of some of the areas where we've grown. We also have a large amount of our business, which is contract R&D or research services. So I'm just including some example numbers here. Our total revenue for 2019 is anticipated to be at least 2 million, probably could be up to about 2.3 million.
Okay, so that's what you're calling income here on the slide.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, so we've been self-sufficient since 2015.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the scalability. I'm just looking at the headcount adds and the revenue. And just curious, as you think about going forward to 2022, are you scaling in a similar amount that you'll be having to add a headcount for that, or how does that work?
I think we're kind of in a burst phase of growth right now. So I do think we're going to continue to scale up in terms of FTE. Though I would say from the beginning of 2017 through the next year, we're probably seeing more than average growth in our FTE. So we do think we'll continue to expand beyond the next year, but maybe not quite at that same burst rate.
Maybe ask another way. How automated is your solution?
Sorry, what was that?
How automated is your solution?
So we do rely fairly heavily on our employees. We like to say that's our biggest asset right now. A lot of the work and the revenue that we do generate is from the custom contract research, and so obviously we need the scientists that are able to go in and perform that research. So as we get more business, essentially we are going to need to hire more people.
If there's no other questions, we're going to continue. Thank you, Dr. Vandergrass. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Balasubramanian back to Mayo Clinic, where she did both her medical education and her training. She's coming to us all the way from Houston's Texas Medical Center to tell us about her company, No-ileus Technology. Anatomy Corp, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much. My name is Dr. Swarna Balasubramanian. I'm a Mayo Clinic trained surgeon and the inventor and founder of No-ileus, a novel medical device that treats postoperative ileus. Postoperative ileus is the condition that occurs when the intestines swell and stop working after an abdominal operation and is the main driver of post-op hospital stay. It is a serious medical condition that has no good solution. No-ileus is a novel patent-protected device that reduces swelling in ileus so patients can eat and go home sooner. No-ileus employs a flexible membrane with gentle suction technology to decrease swelling and speed return of bowel function. It is easily placed in the abdomen at the end of an operation with a tube coming out the side. The tube is then attached to a suction pump while the patient is in the hospital. We estimate No-ileus will save 2 to 4 post-op days, and this gives us a $3.4 billion market in the US alone. We truly bring value to all stakeholders. Hospitals save money, surgeons save time, and patients have a better experience and better outcomes with an earlier return to nutrition. We now have a working prototype and very positive results in early animal trials. The device is easy to place, very effective at reducing swelling, it is safe, causing no damage, and best of all, it is removed at the bedside by pulling it out like a surgical drain. There's no need to go back to the operating room. Our path to commercialization takes us to an FDA submission in 2022 with a goal to exit to a large medical device manufacturer. We now have a patent and final prosecution, return is novel, closed a pre-seed round, have this prototype, and the animal studies you heard about. Our team has 80 years of experience, myself, Jim Machek, project manager, Eric Stolian, animal surgeon. We have a nice complement of advisors and mentors in innovation, finance, preclinical research, and corporate matters. We are No-ileus, solving post-op ileus, raising a seed round with a $3.4 billion market. Thank you so much. Questions?
Just for context on the medical condition, is it correlated like how exposed the intestines are?
So ileus is a problem that occurs in some extent after every abdominal surgery. And if the older you are, the longer your operation is, and the sicker you are, the more likely you are to have ileus.
And if you think in the U.S. for the amount of those types of procedures, how many happen annually?
1.7 million open abdominal operations every year. And probably 20 to 25 million in the world.
Are there any competing technologies on the market today that you're looking to displace?
There are none that actually treat ileus. There are a couple of startups that are trying to measure ileus, and that's all I'm aware of.
As far as confidence in how much hospitals will pay for this, have you gathered any data from prospective buyers to gain understanding around that?
We have talked to some hospital administrators and quality assurance people at hospitals, and for comparison, there is a drug that is called Entereg. And Entereg is a drug that works by a different mechanism to speed post-op recovery by blocking the effect of narcotics on the bowel. Costs $1,000 and saves 1 day. And hospitals gladly put it on the formulary. We have heard from hospital administrators that if we can save 1 to 2 days, they will very happily put this in their formulary or on the shelf for a device.
So it looks like there's a capital component to sale plus a disposable.
Yes, so exactly. So let me see if I can find that slide. Yes, so we have the disposable component, which we have here, and that is very inexpensive to make. We have a pump, so it's a razor blade model again, and the pump is a capital thing. We will have a rental program because capital budgets take 24 to 36 months, and that allows hospitals to start using this right away.
As far as reimbursement goes, this is additive to the cost of
So
procedures?
all inpatient surgeries are covered by a single DRG charge, and so hospitals take the risk of post-op stay, and so, you know, the typical, like for a colon resection, a hospital will get $30,000, and they usually profit, if everything goes perfectly, about $6,000, $8,000 on that, and so anything goes wrong, so even saving $2,000 to $4,000 would be a big deal. Just to put some numbers on that perspective.
Very good. We'll continue that if there's no other questions. Next up, we have Anatomy Corp with Patrick Walsh presenting. Anatomy Corp is yet another Walleye Tank pitching alumni, and they're pitching in the professional division for the first time this year. Boston Biosciences, you're on deck. Thank you.
So I'm Patrick with Anatomy Corp, and we are accelerating drug development for neurological conditions. And that's a pretty noble cause. About 1 in 7 people suffer from a neurological condition. It destroys about $2.7 trillion worth of value every year. If you want to create a new drug, it costs about $4 billion, and you're going to spend about 95% of your time failing. And the solution to this is screening actual human neurons. It's more predictive. It actually tells you what a human would respond to in a drug context. And if we're talking about chronic pain specifically, what we're trying to do here right now is develop more effective painkillers. And that's a really important issue right now, especially with the opioid crisis. Painkillers are very effective, but unfortunately also very addictive. So there's a lot of money floating around to create non-addictive, more effective, fewer side effect painkillers. And what we do is we actually manufacture these human neurons, and we do it the best way possible. We have a 7-day process that allows us to manufacture these neurons. This is 5 times better than anyone else in the world can do right now, based on core intellectual property that we developed at the University of Minnesota. It's just a lot more efficient to do it this way. And this is a business because we have sales. We just launched our first product a couple months ago, so it's only a couple $1,000s. We have 6 deals pending that in the new year will net us about $400,000, about $50,000 per deal. That's essentially all we have. So me and Vince have been at this for only 7 or 8 months, but we made a lot of progress in this time. Did a lot of technical de-risking, did a lot of execution de-risking, as well as market de-risking. So I think we're on the right track. Thank you.
Tell me a little bit, Patrick, about how you know your cells are good surrogates for actual neuronal cells.
Yes, so there's a lot of readouts that you can use. Essentially, you look for neuronal function, which is really the electrophysiological profile of these neurons and how they respond to different treatments. Our current product for chronic pain, essentially, you know, you can use analgesics, so you add this into the culture media and you watch the mean firing rate, it's called, reduce, or you can add in something like spice or capsaicin, and you can watch the mean firing rate increase, which says that these are actually functional to things that people respond to.
Maybe I missed it. Who do you sell to? A little bit more on your business model?
Yeah, so right now we're targeting mostly contract research organizations. They consolidate a lot of business, so getting one of these bigger customers really takes, it's a huge chunk of cash. And you know, one pharma company has actually found us through our website somehow. They don't really market too much, but you know, getting directly into pharma is even better than going through the contract research organizations. There is an academic arm where you try to contact individual researchers. That's a little more deep, a little more difficult. You need a big sales force for that. We're still trying to do that a little. That's kind of the direction we're looking at right now, if the deal's good enough with this company.
You stated that you currently have sales. What's the regulatory pathway that you've had to take in order to get this to the market?
Not too much. This is research use only, except for when we sublicense to, for-profit to do commercial activities. And essentially, yeah, it's just a research product, but there is an element of this technology where, you're manufacturing neurons and people are actually implanting these actual neurons into patients as a cellular therapeutic, in which case you'd have to go through the FDA approval pathway. There are comparables out there right now.
And is that your exit strategy, is to go through that FDA regulatory pathway?
Yeah, what we'd like to do is sort of do this research tool space long enough that we could exit from that, spin that off as a research tools only company, and that might be able to fund our clinical aspirations. In which case, if we were to get that going, there has been a recent exit or two worth about $1 billion.
If there are no other questions, we're going to continue. Thank you, Pastor. Last but not least, we have Dr. Yang, who invented the technology we'll be talking about today, used by Austin Biosciences up at the University of Minnesota, and are well on their way to making breast cancer diagnostics a lot less invasive.
Thank you. We are a startup company that focuses on develop cutting-edge cancer diagnostic technologies, in particular breast cancer. So this is a traditional diagnostic flow for the breast cancer. For patients who visit, the doctor's office, they will be recommended for a mammogram if the women are 40 to 50 years old. If potential lump or lesion was discovered, so they have to go through breast biopsy to further confirm their results. However, the reality is 85% of those breast biopsies actually result in so-called benign findings or false positives, which result in large, medical expenses, multiple side effects, unnecessary stress, and for women with dense breasts, the technology simply doesn't work. So we developed a biochemistry-based technology for detecting early stage breast cancer. So this is based on, Nobel Prize winning discovery that, cancer cells using glucose different from their normal cells. So with this technology, there's a change in the landscape. So so instead of direct doing breast biopsy, so they will, go through those our technology first. So, and there's also expanded market for our technology, including liquid biopsy and precision medicine. Thank you.
Can you speak to your intellectual property protection?
Yes, so this is patented by the University of Minnesota. So first as a provisional patent, then PCT, and now it's fully filed in the US and other countries.
Do you have any data on your positive predictive value or negative predictive value on these tests?
We have an ongoing pilot clinical trial, so we're still waiting for the results from those clinical trials.
Maybe when you take a look at your market share, how much does it cost to develop your test? And then what is the cost for a patient to take it?
To develop this, I have so we expect probably in the first year like a $1 million, second year $2 to $3 million, just mainly the cost for the clinical trials. But the cost for per kit, test kit, is about $400.
And how much does it cost you to produce that kit?
It's about $150.
Any other questions from the Wallace? All right, we'll do one more. We have one more.
Sorry, so this is administered in the, who's performing this test?
Oh, you mean this technology?
So you have to take a...
Oh, so who will perform this?
Yes.
This could be a registered nurse or clinicians, at the doctor's, office, or in the hospital setting. The payers could be Medicare. Of course, we need to go through the regulatory process with FDA, to get a code. Thanks.
Chris, I'm going to ask you to be on deck right after this. Thank you. So that concludes the last of our presentations for today. So you're going to be stuck with me for another few moments, and I want to try something fun. So I'm going to ask all of you to pull out your smartphones right now. I know you all have one in your pockets. Pull out your smartphones right now, and we're going to do a little activity. If you switch to your phone or your camera, you should be able to scan this up in front of you, and we're going to ask you to vote for your crowd favorite today. What that means is we're going to ask you to vote for the team that you are most excited about, the team that you liked the most. We're going to ask that you put in that vote. You can only vote for one team out of the whole list of teams that presented today. And we're going to tally those up over the next 15 minutes, and we're going to give out that award to start off our award ceremony. In the meantime, we're going to have the judges. They've already started making their way out to deliberate over the last group. And I'm going to ask Chris Shad to come up and give us an update about the Destination Medical Center and how that vision is growing here in Rochester. Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to be back. Last time I was in front of Walleye Tank was 2 years ago. I had the pleasure of sort of casting a vision of where we thought Discovery Square was going to go. And just sort of as a side observation, the quality of the presentations today has been extraordinary, and every year they just keep getting better and better. So it's been a pleasure to listen to the presentations. I was asked to give a quick update on Destination Medical Center and Discovery Square specifically, and some of the things that are happening in the Innovation District in which we're sitting. So I'll give a quick overview of Destination Medical Center and Discovery Square for those of you who are not from the Rochester area. So DMC, or Destination Medical Center, it is an economic development initiative where the state of Minnesota is investing in the growth of Rochester. We're facing significant growth over the next 20 years, and the state of Minnesota agreed to help us out with that growth with the investment of some public dollars. approximately $5.6 billion of private investment happening in the city over a 20-year period of time, and public investment of $585 million. Within the district of DMC, which is about 1 square mile, downtown Rochester, extending over to St. Mary's, there is a sub-district referred to as Discovery Square. You could think of that as an innovation park or an innovation district. If I would characterize it as where healthcare and business meets. It's where healthcare technologies are being taken out into the market. That's the vision. And 2 years ago, when I stood in front of you, we were about to break ground on a building literally across the street, and we sort of cast a vision of where we thought things were going. And I'm here to give a quick update on where things stand today. The strategy around Discovery Square involves developing space and attracting businesses and attracting capital, access to Mayo Clinic, developing a workforce for the businesses of Discovery Square, and growing the startup ecosystem. I'll give you 3 quick updates on the highlighted items there from the slide. So first of all, space. What has happened in the last 2 years? So One Discovery Square is open, it's across the street. We cut the ribbon on that a few months ago. It is 85% leased, soon it will be up to 95% leased. Also within the sub-district, the 415 building is open for business, and Incubator EDU is operating in there. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. The residents at Discovery Square and the Maven on Broadway, those are 2 residential apartment complexes. They are opening for business as well, so people are moving into those spaces. Coming up is Discovery Square 2. Planning is underway for that. We hope to see some breaking ground on that early part of next year. The Kellen Research Building, which will be, let's see, getting oriented right over here, across the street in this direction. That building is, Mayo will be breaking ground on that space. And 324 apartment buildings are going up just 1 block away from the One Discovery Square. So lots of buildings that are going up, lots of new spaces being developed, residential, research, and business spaces that are opening up or have opened up. Businesses are starting to move into Rochester as a result of some of the activities that have been taking place. In One Discovery Square, of course, Mayo Clinic is in the building. University of Minnesota Rochester has their students in the building taking classes now. Philips is moving into the building. Wuxi Diagnostics, Boston Scientific, and Rion have all been announced as moving into the building, and some of them have already moved into the building. And we have one of our local favorite cafe operators, Cafe Steam, also in the building. The other icon or logo that's on there is BioSig. They're not in the building, they're a block away, next door to Collider Co-working. And that's a company that's just moved into town, and they're hiring their first staff as well. So technology companies are starting to move into the space, and it's really exciting to see what they are bringing into the marketplace. The third piece is the startup ecosystem. There are a lot of people in this room, and I can see them from where I sit, that have been carrying the banner for startup and encouraging entrepreneurship and encouraging startups for a number of years. And we happen to be in a position we might be able to help out a little bit and encourage those, financially support them in some way, some of the activities that are taking place, but also do some things on our own that add to that ecosystem. And specifically, our efforts are focusing on what we're calling the Assistive Tech Challenge. So at a pitch competition, I'm here making the pitch for our pitch competition, which is the Assistive Tech Challenge, which will be happening in the spring. We've been doing a series of design thinking workshops around the region, 7 different communities, from Luther College up to St. Kate's and St. Paul, from Mankato to Eau Claire to the east of us. About 250 people have participated in these design thinking workshops as a lead up to the Assistive Tech Challenge in the spring. And so that's something we are working on. You'll hear a little bit more about that in a minute. Incubator EDU, if you haven't heard, Rochester Public Schools has launched this business development curriculum for juniors and seniors. Those students are being bused downtown Rochester into the 415 South Broadway building. They're learning how to write a business plan. In the spring, they're going to be pitching businesses to investors. So not only are we trying to attract companies here, but we're trying to grow our own entrepreneurs from the high school level and on up. So a little bit about the Assistive Tech Challenge, and I'm going to turn this over to, I should slow down. Okay, I'm going to speak slower and louder. So the Assistive Tech Challenge, this is a business pitch competition. We're seeking solutions around the areas of independent living, access to employment, support for care providers, social skill development, and improved public infrastructure. This is right on the boundary of health and healthcare, and we think Rochester is a great place that we could call the home of where great new technologies are being developed around assistive technology. And we partner with organizations that live and breathe in this space, because we don't pretend to bring any specific knowledge around what are the needs of the communities of people with disabilities. We partner with the ARC and other organizations that support people with disabilities to develop this. Why are we doing this? Well, there are real-world solved problems that need to be solved, and we want to continue to position Rochester as a place of innovation, encourage and engage entrepreneurs and innovators, attract the workforce of the future. When we did those design thinking workshops around the region, there's a reason why we went to communities that had universities. We had an opportunity to stand up in front of university students and talk to them about Rochester and Discovery Square and the Assistive Tech Challenge and the things that are happening here. And we want to use this as an opportunity to encourage new startup companies. This is the timeline for the competition. We are here in December, and we are really just launching this. You can go to assistivetechchallenge.com and learn some information about it. We will start taking applications on January 6th. The application window closes February 10th, and the teams that get to pitch will be notified on March 2nd, and the competition itself will be April 4th, 2020 at the Mayo Civic Center. I think that's my last slide. No, this is not my last slide. This is the funnest slide of all. This is the slide that's showing what has happened and what is happening here in Rochester. So this is a satellite view of the Discovery Square district inside the orange, the box. The blue buildings are Mayo Clinic buildings, of course they're blue. The orange buildings are business buildings that existed, and the yellow buildings are residential units that existed in 2015. And this is what has happened since 2015. So 501 on First and the Collider building both came online. Collider is where, of course, Collider Co-working is. Blue Duck Restaurant is in there. 501 First is residential units. They came online. China Hall has come online right outside the boundaries of our district. They offer some office space for small companies. Then One Discovery Square opened up earlier this year. Maven on Broadway over on the right, and the residents at Discovery Square opened in the bottom left. Those are residential units. Between those two, about 300 apartment units coming online, and they're taking leases now as we speak. 514 on Broadway is opening up. 324 apartments. That hole is in the ground. Those apartments are coming up out of the ground as we speak. The Kellen building is going to be breaking ground early next year. 2 Discovery Square will be breaking ground early next year. And then in 2021, planning is underway. That big long green line you see going north-south, we're going to be turning First Avenue. 5 blocks of First Avenue, we're going to be turning it into a linear park. It's a very underutilized street. We'll push the traffic over to one side, and we're going to have 5 blocks of parkway. Green space, artist space, retail space, all kinds of great things are going to be happening there. So the design development work happens in 2020, and we hopefully break ground on that. We plan on breaking ground on that in 2021. So those are the things that are happening just in the last 4.5 to 5 years. And we're really just beginning. There's still a lot of room to grow, and we have a great vision for where we want to go in the next 15 years to round out our 20 years. And so I think I'm going to leave it right there and let you imagine where things go over the next 15 years based on the growth we've seen in the last 5 years. Thank you very much.
I'm going to actually pull up the QR code one more time. I meant to give us a few minutes here with it up. I just stole it away from you right before you had a chance to keep voting. So I'm going to leave this up for about 2 minutes, and then we're going to introduce our next speaker. We're still giving our judges a few minutes to deliberate before we move into this section on award ceremony. So if you could, please take a moment now to vote for your favorite team today. They will be our crowd favorites. Thank you. so in the interim, we're going to hear from Pat Dillon, who's the director of the MIN SBIR group, whose goal it is to help startups and existing companies access federal SBIR, STTR, non-diluted funding. So let's give a warm round of applause for Pat Dillon. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Stefan. He told me I have to stand here on the blue tape so that the camera can get a good shot of me. So here I am, and thank you again for giving me like a few minutes on the floor to talk about federal SBIR and STTR funding. So there are a lot of companies that presented today that I have had the pleasure of working with over the years. Some have won, some are in that pipeline to get to the point where they're going to win. So for those of you that are here that may not know me or the SBIR program, would you please raise your hand? And don't be shy. All right. So it's for small businesses, so you can be a one-person operation all the way up to 500 employees. You have to be independently owned and operated, organized as a for-profit in the United States, and you have to be a U.S. or a legal resident alien in order to be eligible for this funding. So there's $3.7 billion available each year through 11 federal agencies to support high-risk, high-payoff research and development with the goal to commercialize. So the work that I've learned over the years, and it used to be just fine to have a great idea without really a business case, well, that doesn't work anymore. So we have to start from the perspective of, well, what's the opportunity, the business opportunity? And we know we have to go through R&D in order to get to that commercialization opportunity in the future. So I don't do all of this all by myself. I'm Superwoman, but I'm not that good. I rely on my colleagues in this world of technology commercialization. So I work with Dr. Carla Pavone at the University of Minnesota, MinCor, I-Corps. How many of you heard of I-Corps? Wonderful program. And I know it's going to come online remotely sometime soon. Take advantage of those courses. They are really important for early stage companies or projects to really understand what that commercialization pathway is. And why is it so important? It's because if you get an SBIR award, you're going to go through something very similar with that federal agency. So you might as well get started early, work with MinCor to get that training and that expertise and the terminology and so forth to navigate through those programs and to understand that process. So there's 11 federal agencies that participate in the programs. I call them children because they each have their own personality. And believe me, it used to be a lot easier to explain the programs years ago than it is today. It is incredibly full of idiosyncrasies and nuances. It's very competitive, and it's complex. It's not something you can do in just a few weeks and submit a proposal, unless you're a very experienced Mayo Clinic clinician that has won a lot of NIH grants, and you know how to do that. That skill set easily transfers over into the SBIR environment. So one of the agencies that's really focused, of course, on biomedical research is the National Institutes of Health. Their overall budget for SBIR and STTR, these acronyms, we're all full of acronyms, is over $1 billion. Just for SBIR and STTR. Overall, the budget is close to, I think, $32 billion for NIH, National Institutes of Health. So there's 27 institutes and centers that participate in the SBIR and STTR programs. And guess what? For every phase of the project, there's a different funding level. So you can imagine it gets pretty complicated pretty quickly. So that's where I come into play. I've been doing this since 1994. I have grown up with the SBIR program and all the changes that have gone on with it since that time. And it's been in existence since 1982. So I was just sharing with someone today that there's been $50 billion awarded to companies all across the country since 1982. It is time for Rochester to get its fair share, because since 1982, and you're going to be shocked by this, the amount of SBIR and SCTR funding that's come to Rochester is less than 20 million out of 50 billion. It is changing. It is changing because of all the things that are happening here. The DMC, it's amazing. We're on this growth opportunity, but we need companies to step into the limelight and to take the risk and learn how to do this. Because if you do, you will forever be grateful to yourself and to the company and to those investors, because it's non-dilutive. We're not going to take a piece of your company, and you keep the IP, which is amazing. So I guess I got the awesome. All right, thank you, everyone.
I keep up with too many things in my hands. I have my phone, I have a clicker, I have a microphone, it's crazy. So what I'm going to do next, we're still waiting for the final deliberations to come in, but I want to make sure to invite everybody out to the next event. The Walleye Tank continues. We run 2 Walleye Tanks every year. The next Walleye Tank is going to be run up at the University of Minnesota. It has a date, it has a time. You can put it in your calendars now. I'm going to ask you to take your phones out. I expect that they're still on the table at this point, so you can go ahead and put the date in. May 1st, 2020, we're going to be up at the University of Minnesota, Carlson School of Business. We're going to open our applications again about a month and a half, 2 months before. And we're going to Honeywell Electric, where this event typically is run. So this is the 8th iteration of the Walleye Tank. Next one will be up in the spring. It may or may not have been mentioned, but one of the major and one of the big value props that we provide when we do this event is that the winners of the Walleye Cup end up moving on towards the Minnesota Cup, which is a much larger and a much more value-driven or monetarily driven competition. But getting into the Minnesota Cup is really, really challenging. So the groups that get to present here today really have a leg up in approaching that activity. While the team of judges are still deliberating, I've seen that the SurveyMonkey has started to slow down. So I'm going to go ahead and announce the Crowd Favorite Award. And I am very proud to announce the Crowd Favorite Award is the students from the class that we taught this semester. So we'd like to congratulate Game Changers on being the crowd favorites with 35% of votes. And while the rest of the votes are still coming in, I want to make sure to invite you all out today. You've made it with us this far, so the least we can do is try to sustain you. So we have pizza and drinks and desserts at the Squales, which is down the street. If you want to take a picture of the map right now, that would be helpful. But it's very close, to about a 6-minute walk. So that's where our reception is going to be. We're starting at about 5:30. So once we are finished with the prizes, once we are finished with the event today, we'd love to see you all there. That is the networking portion of this event. This is what it's all about. Do you have a question? Is there parking around there? There is some parking around there, yeah, but it's still Rochester parking, so you know, it's still pretty limited. Any questions right now? So we're going to take a few minutes while the judges continue to deliberate. Yeah, so we're going to pass you over to the director of the Walleye Tank, Dr. Stephen Ecker, who you all know and love by now, I'm sure.
All right. So this event really, from my point of view, gone great. So I want us all to thank the Stefan and Martin and Ankit and all the team that put this all together. It was really awesome. we also live the life of startups. So if you have suggestions on how to improve it, please let us know. We incorporate. That's how we've done it all the time. We do have one while the walleyes come on down. We have all this awesome bling in front, and it includes prizes for the various classes. Includes our first ever Christmas ornament for our walleyes. It's a walleye 3D printed Christmas ornament. It is a plaque for each one of the winners in the junior and the reeler division. And we have gold checks as well. And our wonderful new trophy here that's custom made, 3D printed for us. All right. So I want to give a big shout out to our Maker Clinic, Adam Salmi, who made all of these. He was awesome and did it for us for the tank. Thank you. Are you ready? I do have one other person. Mary McCarthy has really stepped up for the partnership with the University of Minnesota, and this is more fully integrated with the Mayo Clinic's Office of Entrepreneurship. So we've been doing this for a while, and we hope and thank everybody in the audience also for your support over the years as we've developed this event. I don't need more filler, guys, because I don't know. So, are you ready? All right. Back to Stefan.
So I get to announce the winners. I'm super excited. Mary McCarthy with you in TechCom. The winner.
Needs to be really right up in front.
Is that better?
There it is. It's there.
Hello. Really excited to announce the winners, and you still can't hear me. All right. Is this better? Okay. The junior winner, I'm proud to announce, is Brain.
Yes. So it's worth mentioning this year, this is one of the first year that we were we're able to award cash prizes. So the cash prize that goes along with the junior angler winners is $500. So congratulations again to Brain.
All right, the mid-level winner is Checkable.
You get all of the bling.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you.
This team, Checkable Medical Diagnostics, are receiving a $1,000 cash prize. We're excited to announce that as well. And last, but very excited to be 2 awards for the professional division. The first runner.
Second runner-up is Sandstone. And the winner, with $2,000, is No-ileus.
Congratulations. Such an update. Totally unexpected and very exciting. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so with that, I'm going to conclude this year's Walleye Tank. Thank you all so much for coming in. Thank you again to all of our walleyes. This would not be possible at all without you. The community is growing, and we're really very excited to be a part of it. We'll see you all in May. Thank you again. We hope to see you tonight. Please come out to the Swallows. The pizza is very good.
That's done. Did you have to go in front and say,
We did. Thank you. Notice that the last little bit of lighting you see, part of fantastic. So I got it this morning and was like, I guess I am. Oh crap. Yeah, because he has 2 songs that he's presenting, so we're trying to keep somebody from
pull it off. Good to see the back channel communicating going, and wasn't it working seamlessly? Really great. When you got a mail, the first thing I did was everything is Gmail or Slack. Very good.
I'm not worried about it right now. Students can tell us their way.
It made things much easier than running back and forth. Yeah, running back and forth is a killer. That's one thing we learned about year 2. It's you get a lot of steps in, so it's good for health. It doesn't suck. Added the stress. We're pretty well today. Yeah. What? Oh man, nice. I'm gonna put it on our tree. Yeah, you did. Maybe just remove the. Is the live stream off? I don't know if he stopped it or not.
Somebody Justin Trudeau hot mic style things, including this one probably.
Yeah. Whoa. I think it's still streaming. Hey. Of course. Hopefully it was a really good. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of get to see the progression. People, professional ones, they've been at the starting of the same time. Have you ever heard about top cool scripts? Yeah. Go for the product that you're familiar with. I think it was good. Yeah. You had great fun. Yeah, good. And you learned something locally, and now you can take this forward. That's great. Alright, I gotta figure out what they need help cleaning up. If we need any help? No, I think we're good. I'll see you tonight. Oh, yeah, no, it's still, I should probably go. That's what we said, don't,